This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN.Network. And joining me right now is Chris Dobbin. He's the president and CEO of Nova Leap Health Corp. It's a publicly traded company. I got two symbols for you: NLH on the TSX Venture and NVLPF on the OTCQX. And Nova Leap will be presenting at our upcoming virtual event, the SNN.Network Canada virtual event, happening December 7 through 9, 2021. To register and see that presentation, please go to Canada.SNN.Network. And with that, Chris, good to see you again. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back. It's been a few months.
Been a few months, so I'm looking forward to getting the full update. But for those who may not have heard any of our interviews in the past or never even heard of Nova Leap before, can you give us that one line of what Nova Leap does, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. We're in the home healthcare space, so think of us as an in-home care company.
Very good. All right. So last time we did that interview, or last time that we did an interview together, that was published on April 9, 2021. So let's get some highlights. What you guys been up to since then?
Yeah, so we're talking 6-7 months ago now, I guess. So a few updates. Maybe I'll start with M&A just because I know most of the investors that are always interested in that from us. So we did announce a closing in Rhode Island, New England-based business that had a bit of a lengthy licensing process to go through. Recently announced another acquisition that we closed in Oklahoma, and most recently announced 2 pending acquisitions going through licensing, another one in South Central and one in the Southeastern US. So those are 4 transactions on the M&A side, 2 of which are currently pending, and we expect to get through those hopefully by the end of this year. In terms of operational side of things, I'd say since we last spoke, graduate is probably not, but we've gone from the pink to OTCQX, I think, as you alluded to in the intro. If you may remember, an early, I guess, from our last conversation, essentially back in late 2019, early 2020, we had convertible debt that we had raised, and we'd force converted a portion of that earlier this year. And since we last spoke, we force converted the remainder. So again, just short up our balance sheet. We've been sitting with a bunch of cash on there as a result of some of the government programs been introduced as a result of COVID. So pretty strong balance sheet. M&A traction continues on. So I feel we're in a pretty good spot between those things as we enter into the remainder of the year.
So with these new transactions that you just talked about, that you just closed, what do you expect in terms of revenue growth as a result of bringing them on board?
Yeah, I'd say that these transactions are pretty consistent with the ones that we've done in the past. I mean, we look at from a revenue perspective, I think our average is about 0.55% of revenue. So generally paying between 4 to 5x on EBITDA. Very, very consistent. Now we may have some on the lower end of the spectrum, some on the higher, but that's been the average of course the last 15 or 16 transactions. So pretty consistent here. So the one in Rhode Island, a little bit of a smaller business. I think when we made the announcement, I think it was doing 1.6 million previous to COVID. We actually ended up renegotiating a deal downward a little bit because they'd taken a bit of a decrease in hours, and so I don't think it was announced because it wasn't material, but it was just it was closer to $1 million, and we actually took it over by the time we got through licensing. And the second one was an Oklahoma-based business just doing over $2 million of revenue pretty consistently. So we like both those businesses. The Rhode Island business for us was an expansion in Rhode Island. We already had a very successful operation there, so for us it was actually an area we were looking to expand to, and just happened to pick up the phone and someone that had an interest, and so it worked out well. And the same thing in Oklahoma. We have a good little business there looking to expand into the Tulsa area, and that's where we picked up this business. So again, I think it's going to work out for us pretty well long term. The other 2 that we've announced, the one in South Central, we haven't announced the state yet, just at the bequest of the sellers, just for confidentiality reasons. But again, good business. Again, probably closer to $2.5 million. Revenue plus, and then one in the Southeast, a little bit smaller, $1.7 million of revenue. So again, not too far off from where we typically do it. So the range is probably anywhere from 1.6 to 3 out of these 4 deals thereabouts. And again, lots of deal flow we continue to see. I think we're going to have many opportunities coming in the coming years. and we just, matter of fact, we just announced our last press release. I don't know if you saw this, but we've indicated that our 5-year target is to essentially take the business from, let's call it just over 20 million of annualized revenue in Q2 to north of 100 million at the end of 2026. So, that's our target, and we should attain north of 10% EBITDA margin. So, pretty aggressive, I think quite doable. And that we laid out in the press release, how we see that unfolding. So, and pretty exciting times, I think, for our company. I know the staff's excited. We're pretty excited. Lots of opportunities in front of us. And so we just keep plugging away.
Sounds good. So listen, I have to ask, on the map behind you, is that the locations of all your services, or all the places, or is that your vacation wish list or something? I got to get some more color on that.
Yeah, it's a map that every time we make an announcement, we put the little pin back there. So we generally have the staff that will gather around, and we'll put the pin there and have a bit of a celebration. So it's great that we're growing as a company, but really the celebration is the fact we're adding terrific people to the organization. I mean, there's a reason why these small businesses have been successful. They have great people. I get the best job in the world because I get to welcome great people to the organization, get to work with them on a regular basis. So, that the map is indicative of really two things. One, where we are right now, but if I sort of move out of the way, you'll see there's an awful lot of space where we're not. And I think that, as I've alluded to many times in the past, that really represents, I think, the opportunity we have ahead of us.
Listen, I think if you hit that target for 2026, I'm going to get you a frame for it, a very thin frame behind it. I think that would look nice on the wall. But, before I let you go here, you mentioned the 2026 goals, that you're seeing lots of deal flow. I mean, I would assume there must be some industry tailwinds that cause you to put forth, some of these aggressive targets that you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, maybe first, let me speak to why I actually put the targets out. I think that's important because we hadn't done that really up to this point. I mean, back, I think in 2018 and 19, we may have put out targets in terms of number of acquisitions. I think we put out probably 4 for both those years. We did 5 one year and 3 the next. So the average was there, but we really hadn't put out specific targets. And for us, I think it was just an important time that we do this for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons for putting the target out was really, I felt we had built some credibility in the market. And for a long time, I think when I sort of recall going back, when I was looking at, thinking about the folks that I've sort of, beaten the street on in Canada and the US, and you're constantly out there trying to drum up support for the business and just create an awareness. I think there was the general sense early on, it was like, yeah, I've kind of heard that story before. But then what I found is when I go back 2 or 3 times to see the same people, like, you've actually done what you said you would do. And that was interesting to me. I found that really interesting, is that was a signal that there's a lot of companies out there that don't actually fulfill what they're telling people they could do. So I felt between that and getting coverage through Cormark and now through Echelon, I just felt we were at a point where we actually had credibility. And so I think the timing for us was right, where 3 or 4 years ago we might have put out a number and people might have been like, yeah, everybody says that. But again, credibility to me, I think, was important from this perspective. The second thing is, I think people want to understand what the path is, and in putting these numbers down, I wanted to keep it simple. And you look at the math, it's really simple. I mean, what we're saying is that on average, each of the next 5 years, we can acquire up to 15 million. If our starting point is roughly 30 and we're adding 75, you're 105, right? So very, very simple math, right? And again, ours is a very simple company to understand. So I between credibility and just the right timing of laying out a path of where we could be, so people could have a little bit of a clearer picture in their mind, I thought was important. So that's really why we did it. In terms of the tailwinds, I think, let me talk about tailwinds and headwinds. I think we talk about both here. One, there's no question. I mean, COVID has put a greater emphasis on home care, because we know what happened at the beginning of COVID. We know what continues to happen where people are unvaccinated, particularly the elderly, right? And in all the nursing homes and facilities and so on, we still see outbreaks. We still do. And so where do people feel most comfortable? I really, it's in the home, right? Because you already are separated from people. And as long as you have that interaction with folks on a regular basis, you're probably in a bit of a more secure environment, at least as we are today. So I think that's helpful for us. The challenge, of course, has been, because of COVID, it's been a little bit more challenging in many industries, including ours, to hire the people we want. And so you have a demand that's out there in the market with an aging population. That's not going to go away. We know that. But yet we have to meet the demand with the provision of services. And that's the right number of caregivers. And that's been a bit of a challenge for us across the industry. I mean, we've seen it in the restaurant business and other industries and so on. So, I think we're starting to come out of that a bit, but we're not quite where we'd want to be. So right industry, from my perspective, right demographics from my perspective, long, many year runway, thousands of business opportunities. So those are all the right things from my perspective. The current headwind is just trying to get the right people to provide the service, right? And that's where you get a little bit of friction, right? And so that's kind of where we are today. So I think we're well positioned, but still some shorter term challenges ahead of us we have to get through. So that's just a part of being in business.
Part of the game, right? And you got to love it. So with that, Chris, where can our audience go and find more information on Nova Leap Health?
NovaLeapHealth.com is our website. We typically put all our press releases out there. I'd say for people that really have an interest in being up to date, we're pretty good to get press releases out right away in our email distribution blast. So sign up on the website. It's probably the quickest way to get insight in the company.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Good luck, stay safe, and I look forward to our next update.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you.